Hi, I'm Nikko Hurtado, and I'm at Black Anchor Collective in Hesperia, California. And this is my new Dia de los Muertos tattoo DVD. I'm actually putting this Dia de los Muertos tattoo DVD in order to, I have been doing a lot of the Day of the Dead tattoos lately, so I figured, you know, it was something that maybe people wanted to see, and I've seen a lot of them done lately, a lot of the tattoos, so I thought maybe I'd put my own input out there and have people kind of see how I do them. I'm actually covering the concept and design of like the makeup on the face and how I come about it, and like reference that I look at as far as like a skull and stuff like that. I'm covering a different palette than that I've been using but don't normally use in my color portrait stuff. So this is more of like a painter's palette, and you know, just trying to keep light source colors in light and shadows in shadow, and kind of using them together. So hopefully this creates a more 3D tattoo for you, and also covering value, shape, and the filigree, and just giving a different inside look at doing them, you know, a different angle of it if you're not thinking of it like that. So hopefully this helps you out. Let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to go ahead and get started talking to my brother right here about which picture we're going to choose. Just looking on the computer and going through them and making sure you're choosing the right one for the place on the body. You know, different spots in the body, different pictures work. So just really trying to think about the way it's going to look. We're going to have to mirror image this picture because it was taken the opposite way. Sometimes pictures look funny like that, but this one actually looks pretty good. It doesn't look off. So this is the picture we chose. Go ahead and cut it up and get it ready. Placement, make sure it's not too big. Just put it on there and make sure it really fits and looks well. You know, he actually has another piece on the opposite side of that leg that, you know, me and Sean Barber did. So here's a skull, and when I'm doing the Day of the Dead stuff, I really trying to think about like the sockets and the way it rolls around, you know, like the makeup, and also about the nose, you know, just the way the cavity looks and kind of the shape of it. So that way it's not too big or not too small when you draw it on the face, because it has to be the right shapes, you know. I always notice that if it's too square around the eyes, like the actual like makeup on the faces, it ends up looking really funny. So you really just want to kind of see how that top of that, you know, forehead right inside of the socket kind of drops down and goes up towards the center. And then as far as like, you know, on the bottom, really thinking about the cheekbones and stuff and how you can use like the filigree to make the cheekbones look right. So just trying to make it look the best it can. And you can kind of see where it's going to be. And so I'm going to go ahead and get started in drawing on this and trying to get that shape. You know, I usually like to use the eyebrows because, you know, it goes up right there. I know eyebrows usually go up on the outside, but I usually drop them in just to roll around more of the socket shape, the skull shape, just to make them look a little bit, just more like the skull. So we're going to go ahead and just draw these in and see what it looks like. So you're really paying attention underneath the eye right there and kind of thinking about where the socket would be and how deep it would be, and just making sure it looks right. This is a real tricky part when you get to the tattooing part, because your value has to be right. I mean, I see a lot of these done, and the value is off sometimes inside the sockets, because it's really hard to think about, you know, having to change the color and the value of inside of that area, you know, especially with the eyes having to be so important. So I use this picture just because it's so dramatic to where you can see the light source hitting really well. So all you really need to do is just go, you know, maybe five shades darker, and then just make sure you put your white highlights right. So yeah, just really sketching it in there, taking your time, you know. My brother wanted one of these, you know, spider webs on the forehead, so just making sure I'm finding the center of the face, you know. I think I draw it in right now. It takes me a second to realize it, I think, to draw it in. But right here, like I'm saying, paying attention to the cheekbone. So I'm going to go ahead and start drawing these cheekbones in and drawing like the filigree to really encase like the shape of this, you know. She has real strong features, so, and real strong structure to her face, so it's real easy to draw on. I made sure to use like one light source when I took the picture, that way the shadows would be pretty heavy and it'd be a little bit easier to draw. as you can see, I drew the center of the face in there a little bit and trying to get like the shape of the lips with like the shape of the lines coming out. Just trying to make that look like teeth, you know, around the lips, like make it look like, you know, the gaps in between the teeth, and really keeping that the idea. I mean, really what you're drawing on here is the shape of a skull, so that's one thing you're really trying to think about. The nose, you know, I think it's really cool. I've seen a lot of them done like spades, so I kind of use that. I think it looks really cool, but it also has the shape of the skull's face. Just really trying to get this. Sometimes it's tough. Like sometimes I have to draw it a few times in order to get it right, or sketch on it a few times to get it to the place I want. I'm doing it right here on the photocopy, so that way, you know, I don't have to look through no tracing paper or anything, just doing it straight on. That way it comes out more to my liking, and I can kind of visualize and see more what it's going to look like. I usually do 2 lines, as you can see on the cheekbones, one kind of curving upward and then one curving under and hitting the lips, just because I like being able to shade inside of the gap there and kind of show the bottom jawbone, and then it shows kind of the top cheekbone of like if there was a skull there. You know, here I'm thinking about trying to do something like an anchor or something, or 3 dots or something. I'm not really sure, just trying to mess with it, and also talking to my brother and making sure that he's liking what's going on. So I think I'm just going to keep it simple and keep like 3 dots there. Things always change though, you know. Sometimes I'll be tattooing and I'll completely change the makeup, you know. It's just kind of something that, you know, the creative part comes up and you just want to, you know, change it up and make it look a little different, or you come up with a new idea. You know, I've been liking this new thing. I overlap the filigree, you know. A guy I was working with had been doing it on his like traditional tattoos, and I thought it looked really cool, so I figured I'd swipe that idea a little bit and kind of take it for my own. So yeah, that's pretty much where I like it, pretty much what it's going to look like. So I'm going to go ahead and get the Thermofax paper and pull the center out just like we normally do, and you know, kind of show you how I trace this. So this is a mirror image copy of the actual piece I'm going to do on my brother. When I do it, I trace on it backwards because the stencil comes out on the opposite side, on the back side. So I usually use like a pen, like a pretty thick pen, like just like a big pen or something like that. Nothing too crazy. If you want to get crazy, you can use like a, you know, a mechanical pencil. Sorry. I usually use like a mechanical pencil or a big pen, depending on the thickness I need. Sometimes the mechanical pencils tend to break a lot if you don't have a good one, like this one does. This one I think started breaking on me a bunch, so I had to switch it up. But unfortunately, if you use a pen, it makes the lines a little bit thicker, it makes it a little bit harder to read when you're tattooing. So sometimes it is worth it to deal with the mechanical pencils, you know, and them breaking. I just get frustrated a little bit. So I'm going ahead and I'm just doing value, shape, or color, depending on what I think is important. Kind of just tracing that, making sure I'm paying attention to the shapes of everything and what I think is important. Make sure when you make your stencil like this, you don't overwhelm yourself, you know. I tend to go a little crazy. A lot of people say, you know, it's too much, or, you know, I've had friends tell me, take off your training wheels, you know, just funny things like that. But I'm comfortable like this, you know. This is where I understand it, and I think I need that information. A lot of times I don't even use it, but it's just I put it there because I'd rather it be there and it go away than it not be there and me be lost. But make sure that you put information that you think is important and not overwhelm yourself. Very easy to get confused, and just keep it simple and don't try to go crazy. You know, you don't want to get lost being confused also. You know, you put too many lines in one place, you can't tell where the pupil is, or you can't tell which line's the one for the top of the lip, or, you know, things like that, or which one was the makeup, you know. But right now I'm just drawing the shape and really paying attention to the shape still, like I was saying, you know, especially when I'm going around the eye, making sure you're going around that sphere of the eyeball, and, you know, the tear duct and stuff like that, and really paying attention to the shape for drawing. Don't ever attempt these kind of pieces without drawing it first. I mean, if you've never drawn something this realistic or even come close, I wouldn't recommend tattooing it. It's pretty permanent, and you really don't want to have to live with really making a mistake that bad on somebody. So I flip it over. Usually what I do now is I go ahead and put it on the photocopier, just straight down like that. I put the purple side down after I stencil right on top of my thing. And what happens is the photocopier naturally, just on its own, no mirror imaging, no nothing, will print out the exact right piece of paper and the right stencil, so that way you can run through the thermofax machine. So you see, I use a mirror image copy. I go ahead and trace on top of that. I'm not going to use it backwards. It's the one I'm going to tattoo is actually going to be opposite. I put it on top of the printer. Printer prints it out. The printer gives me my my paper I'm going to run through the thermofax. So real simple. Go ahead and show you here. And that's what comes out the printer. You know, so when you run it through the thermofax, it's perfect. It's the right, it's mirror image just right on its own. And you don't need mirror imaging on your actual printer. You just do it in the Photoshop like I normally do. And then you come out with a nice, perfect stencil that you can use. And you can keep running if you need to, you know, if you put it on and it ends up being blurred, you can just keep running them and getting new ones, you know. So that way you don't have to use just a one-shot stencil. And, you know, I usually make this stuff for my stencils. It's really strong. It's just like speed stick deodorant I put in, and I go ahead and melt it down in a microwave, and I mix it with you know, green soap, distilled water, and alcohol. It's usually 1 full stick of deodorant, melted down in the microwave about 15 seconds. That's the stuff right there. And then whatever the liquid comes out to, like the amount, I get the exact same amount of green soap and a distilled water, and it has to be like half green soap, half distilled water. And I go ahead and make sure it equals the same amount as the deodorant that was just melted. And then I mix them together, and then I put 2 caps of the alcohol bottle, like the actual caps on the bottle itself of alcohol. You put 2 caps into it and you shake it real well. It'll get a little thick. If it gets too thick, remelt it, add a little bit here and there. But the stuff is awesome. You know, see how well it sticks here? I mean, it works really great. See, you only pat it once and you try not to smudge it, but a little bit comes off. Give it about 10-15 minutes to dry, and that thing is going to be stuck on there the whole time you tattoo. It really is amazing stuff, real cheap to make. It only costs like, I don't know, maybe $3 to make it, and you have enough to last you a month or longer, you know. It's great stuff. I learned it from taking seminars and stuff like that. It's real cool. Usually I'll take my finger and just kind of smudge it to kind of get direction and an idea. You know, that's what those smudge marks are, just trying to get an idea of what I want, how far I want it to go, just kind of taking it off. I'll make sure to re-explain the stencil stuff one more time for you before the DVD's over, so that way you guys can make it and really, you know, understand it and use it, because it's really good stuff. So right here, I'm thinking about doing some rays, and my brother was talking, he wanted like a Virgin Mary kind of thing. So I made sure to draw something real simple, nothing crazy. I'm just trying to get like the shapes I want to use there. I really actually didn't know what I was going to do yet. I mean, I thought about different ideas and stuff, but yeah, you know, a lot of the time the background or things like this, you know, I leave pretty simple if it's going to be done in that same sitting, you know, and I just kind of make it up. You know what I mean? I don't really think about it too far in advance, and I pay attention more to what I'm going to do. So now I'm going to show you my favorite machine. That's my Aaron Kane machine right there. I've had that for about, you know, 7 years. I've used it most of my career. There was times I used other machines, but that's my hands down favorite machine. This is my second favorite machine. It's a Bloodhound machine. It's awesome. It runs great. It's never really given me any trouble. Never changed anything on it. I've been using this machine a lot. It's a FK iron. Really light, really good, really strong. It's a number 3 actually. I'm really honored to have it, because I guess Gaston don't give those out, but that's an awesome machine, and I got it from him. And yeah, I have a shag built machine. It's a rotary. It's really solid, really good machine. I use that for like an 8 round. One of my favorite machines. This is a Stigma Hyper. I've been using this for a few months now. It's a really good machine. Got to be careful. It's really powerful. It runs a lot faster than the older ones. I actually like the way the older ones run, but this one's really good. I've used it a lot. Has different jacks you can use on the back, as you can see. This is also from Stigma, but this is a Bazaar. I actually really like this machine. It runs a little bit slower. It's not as powerful. I can use this one a little bit better as far as for like detail. I use rounds in these, not for line work, but actual for detail work. This is a Franco's machine. It's I think it's called a Bishop, and I got this from him. It's an amazing machine. It reminds me of one of the first rotaries I ever bought, and it runs really well, really slow, really good hit. Runs really good. So these are the machines I'm gonna pick to use today on this Day of the Dead piece. The first machine is a Bloodhound machine. That's one of my favorite machines I've used. I'm actually going to use a 9 bug pin mag in that. The next one's a FK iron. I'm going to use a 17 bug pin mag. The third one is a Bishop. Use a 5 round. And the last one's a shag built rotary. Use a loose 8 round. Now these are the tubes I'm going to use. That is a 17 mag tube right there. It's actually a 15 from, these are next generation tubes. So I got one for my 8, one for my 5, one for my 9, and one for my 17. The 17 and 9 are normally 15 and 7 mags with standard needles. So I'm going ahead and go and put these inks out. I put a black from Eternal. I put a plum. I went and put a dark purple out from Fusion. I put like an indigo blue from Intense. I put like a royal blue from Eternal. I put an icy blue from Fusion. I'm going to go ahead and put some more ink caps out. This is a different palette I've been using. Actually, I've been painting a bunch, just trying to relearn my color theory. My mind's been kind of blown by some painter artists I've met, and it's really made me humbled and made me hungry to learn more about color and really learn about light and shadow, you know. So I like to thank all these painters that I've met. So I went ahead, go ahead and put a light purple out from Fusion, putting out a brown from a dark brown and a brown from Fusion, putting out like an ochre from Eternal ink. I wanted these on the light side where the light's hitting. I didn't want them on the shadow color side. So one row is actually what's in light, and one row is actually what's in shadow. So I was trying to keep that separate. I'm putting out a dark red. I think it's a pomegranate red. I put 2 of those out. Putting out a bright red from Intense. I think it's like a sunflower from Eternal. That's a ochre, a yellow ochre from Intense. It's awesome color. It's a Mike DeMasi color. I really enjoy it. I put out burnt sienna from Fusion. I put a green, lime green out from Fusion. Tangelo from Fusion. Like a wild orchid from Intense, something like that. A flesh tone from Eternal. A dark flesh tone from Fusion. Putting out plague, like something like, I don't know, plague brown or something. And then some golden yellow, some flesh tone from Fusion. Right now I was almost out of this one. This one's awesome. It's called Peachy Flesh, and it's from Eternal. It's an awesome color. I put 2 of those out. I'm going to mix a little bit of white in there. Well, actually, this is a light color I mixed myself. It's in an Eternal bottle, but I kind of mixed it. It's a little lighter. I use a little white in there too. And put some whites out. Just a bunch of white. I use a lot of white and some colors mixing down, things like that. So I'm going ahead and go put water over these colors, just because it's a really warm day where I live, and so they're drying out, and I don't want to have to be hitting and barbing my needles on these the tops of these inks as they dry out. So, man, my hand's moving fast there. Man, I love the way that looked. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Everything's set up. So I'm going to go ahead and start mixing black and like that plum from Eternal, and just kind of get going. I hit it in the water a little bit, make it a little bit more fluid, so that way I can use it a little longer. I do it the whole time with tattooing. Usually if it's a long tattoo like this, like an 8-hour tattoo, I end up using about 4 rinse cups. So just making sure these machines run right, you know. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm just trying to pay attention. I don't think I really liked where I set up my picture. I think I ended up moving it down the line on this tattoo. But yeah, just trying to get started and just packing that black in, you know, usually how I do, using short, like, you know, small circles, just trying to get that stuff packed solid. You know, just building it up. You know, the stencil's awesome. It's staying great. So I always put a little bit of ointment down, and then I just go ahead and go into it. I'm using that little bit of black. I use a lot of back and forth motion. Just trying to show you how I tattoo. It's a very slow process, but you know, I think the outcome is okay, and you know, ends up making the client happy. So just running my machine very light. This machine runs very low. I'm actually using my Bloodhound machine right now. Everything's bagged, you know, everything's clean. I like the way that looks. I always feel good when my machines are bagged. Got 2 rubber bands on there, making sure it has good tension. Actually, these needles I use are awesome needles. I buy them from needlejig.com. They're just 9 mag bug pins, long tapers. You know, I made these needles for years and years, you know. I mean, I think up to like maybe even a year ago I made them. I've been tattooing about 8.5 years and at this point. And, you know, I just had to make them every day or every week. I'd make like 40 of them or something. And, you know, finally found a company that I'm happy with, that I order from. And the needles are really, really awesome. They're good quality, and I don't ever really find barbs in them, and it just seems like they're very good quality needles. I'm not sure how much they are. You'd have to check online, but yeah, needlejig.com. So yeah, I'm just go ahead and I'm still using black right now. I'm just using straight black with a little bit of plum, maybe even a little bit of purple. As I get closer to the jaw, you'll see I'll start using a little bit of black, purple, and red. Using a little bit more red. Right now I'm kind of mixing back and forth with everything that's in shadow, using a little bit more of like an olive green in there, and a little bit of like the olive greens is from Eternal also. It's an awesome color. Olive green, and then into my blacks and purples. Yeah. So I'm actually gonna switch this because it's irritating me a little bit, and it's not in the right area. You know, I think that it's better if I have it to the side a little bit. See it a little bit better. That's a little better. I think I adjusted a little bit more later too. It's very hard to get the right placement. I'm sure you guys have all dealt with that. So yeah, this is my hand movement, just small circles, small strokes. Right now I'm just using probably straight black, little purple. I always mix a little black into my purple, just building it up, you know, just trying to have some fun and really trying to build it up. Yeah, so this is actual real time. I wanted to show some of that so people could see my hand motion and kind of how I pull and push my machine. Yeah, this is my Bloodhound machine. The thing's rocking right now. I was packing it right now, just really rocking it. I was really happy with the way that machine was running. So just a little bit of Whiteman and just going in there using black. Right now I'm probably switching back and forth. I'm mixing probably a little black, a little green into like olive green into my black. Just trying to mess with like the temperature of the shadow, you know. It's a little further away from the jawline there, so I'm using a little bit more olive green just because it's a little darker, a little cooler shadow. So I know as I get closer to that jawline, I'll be pumping a little bit more of like that pomegranate red with the black and mixing the green and red together a little bit to get some dark brownish tones and some dark tones in there to really just kind of change it up and add so it isn't just straight one color. It kind of adds a little bit of different colors in there and adds a little temperature to the warmth of the neck. So right here I'm just probably using black again, maybe even a little bit of green again, just going slow and building it up. But yeah, this machine's rocking, man. Really liking it. I've been using this machine for about, like I said, maybe 2-3 years, but I use it almost every day. It's like an old faithful. It's like one of those machines that just get better with time and just has treated me really well, you know. It's really crazy with machinery because I've got other machines from him, you know, and they're great machines, but man, this one is just one of those special machines. It just has its own personality and it just runs amazing, and it's absolutely one of my favorite ones. So I'm just building it up, taking it slow, building up, doing some black. I think I'm going to be getting a little bit more high speed here. I just wanted to show you guys some hand motions here in the dark stuff as I started, and just kind of show you how I build it up. I'm using like I said, a 9 mag bug pen right now, and I'm using a Next Generation tube with some red rat grips. And yeah, so you can see this isn't the natural movement here, but it's very fast. And yeah, I wish I could move that fast. I'd be doing a whole lot of tattoos. But yeah, you can see there's a little bit more purple in there, a little more green. I know we're kind of far out, can't really see, but now you can tell I'm putting a little bit more red. See how it's wiping away? Just got to get in that temperature. It's like the same value. That's one thing. So yeah, I'm just mixing a little bit of black or right now I just actually mix some plum and purple with a little bit of red. You can see the color in there going. So I'm going to hit that pomegranate red a little bit hit a little bit of purple, or that's actually plum, pomegranate red, and a little bit of plum. Hit the water a little bit. Stick it underneath that jaw, get that dark value red in there. Just kind of build it up, you know, just kind of take my time. And yeah, so get a little bit, same color, a little bit of purple, a little bit of plum, and a little bit of red. Just kind of mix it up in there in my tube and make sure it's the right value. Hit the water, and off we go back to the jaw, you know, just kind of getting it under there. And you know, I like soft edges, so really trying to make that edge soft. I'm not trying to make a hard line there. I'm just trying to keep it real soft. Keeps things a little bit more realistic. I know a lot of times my stuff, you know, in the past and even now, I'll end up going too tight and making it too crisp, but I definitely like soft edges a lot, and then just deciding where the hard edges should be. As you can tell, this stencil's staying awesome, and when we get to a part where it's a little bit more boring on this DVD, I'll go ahead and explain that mixture again, because it's really helpful and it's helped me a lot. So yeah, I'm using a little bit of plum, you know, looks like I'm using a little bit of indigo. Just using a little black and plum right here, just getting it real dark, maybe even a little bit of purple, just trying to get that area in there and blocked in, just some dark values. You know, it's not a perfect drawing, you know, really I'm just looking over and just trying to get that idea of what's going on. You know, it's like feathers underneath her neck, you know, it's like a rough kind of, so I'm just really trying to get the idea and the feel of it. Like, I'm not trying to be perfect, you know. I notice when I try to be perfect, it takes me so much longer, and you know, it just doesn't end up turning out right. I end up overworking things. I'm just trying to make decisions right now, and just trying to be confident with the decision I'm making, and just go with it. You know, I'm having fun. You know, this is a fun piece, and you know, it has a little bit of imagination to it, and it's also a portrait, which I love to do, and I just think it's really cool that you know, fun piece. So make sure you enjoy these pieces. Make sure you're not just overthinking it and just stressing out. You know, the more you stress out, the more you're going to be making mistakes. You know, the more negativity you're going to be bringing. So just really try to be confident with the decisions you make, and be confident with what you're doing. And I promise the piece will come out good. You know, you'll be a lot more happy with it, and it'll heal up a lot better and give you the chance to go into it again and adjust whatever you think needs adjustment. It's better to make the adjustment on the second time around rather than overwork it and scar someone and, you know, not be able to adjust it ever. You know, things can be adjusted. They can't be changed, but adjusted, yes. So just going in there, I'm using a little bit of blue now. Now I'm probably using a little periwinkle color mixture I'm mixing there. You can get a great periwinkle from Intense. Eternal sells a great periwinkle. And so does Fusion. They all have some great colors. These are the three companies I use very often. You know, they have great colors. It's great companies. I really don't use anyone else other than that. If I was doing black and gray, it'd be a little different. I'd be using some silverback ink. I like those mixtures, but for this is all color. We're using all just the color companies. So yeah, I'm just using, right now I'm mixing actually like a medium brown, like just brown from Fusion, and just the medium blue from Fusion. I'm not really sure what the color called exactly, but you can see there pretty clear what it is. It's not a dark blue, it's not a light blue. Mixing those to make like a nice gray. Depending on how much more blue you mix with the brown, or how much brown you mix with the blue, it's going to make it a little darker. But you see there, mixing a little white into it, hitting it, it makes a nice gray. You know, I want it a little bit more brown. I can hit a little bit more brown, make it a little bit more a brownish gray. And then just going, and you can see the color right there that I'm mixing. It's like a little bit of a brownish, reddish, like gray. Really cool periwinkle color I'm just mixing on my own. Really cool. I learned this from painting. Just kind of mixing opposite colors. It's really just like an orange and a blue you're mixing to make like a gray, and mixing a little bit of white in there to make the values different. So just mixing those together, getting those down. Right now I'm using that FK iron. It's a really super light machine, super powerful machine, runs really well. I actually just started using these red rat grips maybe about 6 months ago, ever since I started working with Carlos Rojas. If you haven't had a chance to look at his work, his name's Carlos Rojas. He's a really amazing artist that's been working with me, really talented painter. he introduced me to these. I've seen people use them, but I actually had the chance to use them with him, and I went and bought some, and I quite enjoy them. And they're real comfortable on my hand and less hand fatigue. So I always tend to wrap my clip cord around my machine. You know, I wrap it the opposite way, right underneath the vise. It tends to balance my machine out a little bit better. Really helps me move around. I actually learned this from the guy that I apprenticed under, Mike DeMossi. He taught me how to do that. It was just something that he did, and really helped me out, you know. And I've been using it ever since. It's kind of funny. People always ask me how come I do it, and I always tell them it's because of Mike. But it's just funny that it's one of those habits that I've kept from the beginning. So it is true, you know, habits you learn, you keep throughout your career, usually with anything you do. So yeah, I'm go ahead and I'm using some blacks and purples right now. And before that, I was using the blue and the brown mixture and a little bit of white. Like I said, this is a palette that I've been messing with painters that I've been hanging out with, and just kind of learning from them. This isn't the normal palette I use, but I've been challenging myself to learn new things. So I think it's something that I've kind of been practicing with, and I've liked the results. So I'm going to share it with you, especially on a piece like this. So right now, just using a little bit of blue, a little bit of black, knock it in there. Right now, just trying to get that shape, like I said, you know, I start dark to light. So right now I'm just really trying to assess the dark areas and really trying to get those knocked in there, so that way I can go ahead and move on and start mixing more colors. Just using back and forth motion, you know. Shins are so weird, man. Like, you know, whenever I work on shins right there, it always feels so tough, so you have to be really delicate there, you know, especially with these pieces when you're going to be working it a lot. As you can tell right there, I use a little bit more blue with the brown mix. That's kind of what I'm using right there, a little blue, little brown mixture, and white. Just trying to get those ideas too as I'm sketching. You can see I'm sketching in there, kind of looking over, seeing what it looks like, getting the feel of what those little feathers look like, and then just kind of like throwing them down, you know, just knocking them in there real quick and just getting an idea. Not trying to be perfect, you know. It would just take me too long, and I'm not really worrying about that. I'm just trying to get the idea there. You know, just trying to move on. I mean, you can't really tell what they are anyways, so just trying to make it the idea. So I'm right here trying to just knock them in there, still using the blacks, purples, using that FK iron. Thing's powerful, running really well. So just right now I'll be getting into those other colors, like, you know, the tans and stuff, and just getting that white drapery in there. Those things are really hard to do, especially working off a photo like this. Sometimes it's the light values are tough, you know. So right here, I'm just knocking in a little bit of mixing a little bit of brown, a little bit of blue, probably a little bit of black and purple in there, mixing those four colors together to make this, like, not quite a black value, but pretty close, you know, trying to transition out of the black into like the gray values, into the feathers, you know, just trying to block those areas in and just building them up slowly, you know. Right now I'm back to the Bloodhound, and I need a little tighter of a machine. So after I knocked in those big areas and just kind of just trying to knock those in there, just trying to get it to the point where I can put some light whites in there and really make a smooth transition. I mean, you could, if you wanted, you know, just pick up a gray and use it. I like mixing grays, like bluish grays and stuff like that. I think it gives it a little bit more of life, you know, a little bit more color to it. But if you wanted, I mean, make it a little bit more simpler on yourself, you could put an actual gray out and just use black to gray. But I tend to like to change the colors a lot more than that. I like to, for it not to be perfect. I don't like it to be so uniform. Then it becomes so boring and dull. You know, I like it to be a little bit more organic and fluid, or just where it goes together but doesn't, you know, like it matches but it's not perfect color. It's like the same color you're mixing but the value's a little off. Maybe there's a little bit more blue in this area, a little bit more brown in this area. I just like the way it turns out. And honestly, when you keep going into the white, it starts to mix into the same color. So once you get into the highlights, it really just starts to become the right color. But you can see here, same thing, just mixing those blues and browns together, mixing some white, really just trying to get those areas in there. You know, the stencil's staying great, swiping away a little bit. It was a really hot day this day, you know. Really trying to keep the air conditioner cool in the shop while we're doing this. It was a long day. But usually I only get to about this value, and then I'll move on. Like, I pretty much won't go very much whiter or lighter, because I won't want to wipe I won't want to wipe any blacks in there, and really just won't want to just stain or dirty the colors, you know. A lot of times with tattooing, you go too light, you do the black and wipe it over, it just gets really dirty and really muddy. So I'm back there doing a little bit more red, making that transition a little bit more soft, a little bit more warm. So now I'm just going into the hair a little bit. You know, there's a really, really like warm reflection coming off of that drapery under the face, so I'm really trying to capture that. Right now I'm actually going to choose another color. Probably just thinking, trying to decide what exactly my next move is. So yeah, I guess I mixed a little bit more red, and gonna put like that red reflection in there. And that's a little bit of like maybe like a little periwinkle gray right there that I was mixing into, and then I'm going into like, I think it's called, oh man, I think it's ochre from Eternal, and it's a good color. It mixes well, makes it a little bit more green because I probably mixed into a little olive, a little bit of gray, and a little ochre to get that color that I'm mixing right now. Mix a little bit of brown in there. Now trying to get into the light side, mix a little bit of brown, a little bit of bright red. Trying to make it a little bit more warmer as it hits the light. So right now I'm just going in there, I'm using a little bit of greens, a little bit of brown, a little bit of gray into the side of the cheek right there. Mixing all those colors together to make this kind of dirty color. I usually like my shadows to be a little bit more dirty, a little bit more rough, just because I like the way it looks, you know, the reflective lighting and all the cool colors going throughout the shadows. And the light side, I keep it pretty simple, as you'll see, you know, I'll just use pretty much straight up flesh tone colors. Right now I'm using a 5 round, just outlining that flower on the chin with that Bishop machine. It's running pretty good. My 5 round was a little rough this time. It was running a little hard, so I had to back it up a little bit. It looked like it wanted to cut. But it ended up working out really well. Like, the tattoo's healing up great. It's been about a week into the healing, and it's looking fine. You know, I got a couple little rough spots, but nothing major. You know, I think it's going to be really good, and I can't wait to see it fully healed. Yeah, so just back to that, mixing that gray, a little bit of dark brown, a little bit of blue, a little bit of like that olive. Oh no, actually that wasn't olive, that was like that indigo blue. So yeah, just going from the brown to the blue to that little bit of ochre to really get that like it's like a mustardy ochre color. Or you can either use mustard from Intense or like an ochre color from Eternal to get that same, pretty much same color with that mixture. I use either one, whichever I have available, or whichever one, you know, I'm out of, I'll just use the other. So yeah, just mixing a lot of that. I'm trying to get those weird greens right now. Right there I used a little bit of yellow ochre from Intense, trying to get that that nice yellow ochre color. Inside the bottom there's like, it's like a weird green, you know. If I really wanted to, looking at it now, like looking at it through different eyes, I could see far away. I'd probably use a little bit more green in the bottom of the chin, but it's not bad, you know, trying to get it close. You know, we're not trying to be perfect, just trying to get it close. Okay, so we're doing the flower now. I'm really trying to think of, okay, I'm going to do a red flower, okay? So that means the highlight has to be red. If I go into orange, if I go into pink, it's going to change it completely. It's going to make it orange or pink. So I have to go a darker value. So I go ahead and go dark and make sure I'm looking at the shape of the face and the way the shadow's dropping off the lip and across the chin, and making sure I'm showing that on the makeup that I'm trying to draw on there. And so then I go all the way up to red, and I think the brightest color I used on there was Tangelo from Fusion. You know, Tangerine is very similar from Eternal, and you can get it from Eternal too. But both those companies are very good companies with that color. They're very similar. So I'm going ahead and mixing some more black outline, just hitting the water so that way I can move it around a little bit. As you can see, I'm just trying to thicken up that line a little bit. I hit it twice, give it a little bit of line weight on the face. And I am just probably trying to see what's going on. Let me see. Yeah, just outlining it in black. Just trying to get those major shapes in there. I'm just trying to clean it up. You know, the line drawing wasn't perfect, so I had to like kind of clean it up as I'm drawing. Remember, the whole time you're tattooing, you should be drawing at the same time. Just don't rely on your stencil. Your stencil's your guide. So if you see something wrong, fix it. You know, don't just go with it because it's there. It doesn't mean it's perfect. Like, just try to draw. You know, you should always be drawing. When you're making the stencil, you're drawing. You know, when you're tattooing, you're drawing. When you're doing the outline, you're drawing. Trying to fix it, you know, trying to make it better than it was. So underneath the lip here, I'm really trying to stick this real warm shadow under there. I'm actually mixing some greens and browns into it as it gets a little bit away from the lip. You know, just trying to make it, you can see it in the picture, it got a little bit more gray. So I'm mixing a little bit more brown, a little bit more blue, that gray I was telling you. I actually got away from using a lot of the just straight up periwinkle color. I used that for years. I'm always trying to teach myself, so I'm really changing it up, using the blue and the gray. And this looks amazing right here. I like seeing the ink in the rinse cups like that. It's pretty cool. So go ahead, and I'm using a little bit of like a burnt sienna, and actually the burnt sienna is from Eternal, I think, or Fusion, one of them. I'm not really sure. I think it might be Fusion actually that the burnt sienna is from, and mixing it with that brown, trying to get that orangey, dirty green color. So a little bit of brown from Fusion right there. And then mixing just a little bit of that burnt sienna again. And just hitting the water, trying to get that cool color that I wanted in the cheekbone. Just trying not to mix any white to lighten it up. Just trying to keep it away from mixing the light. I'm just trying to keep all my whites in the light source. You know, this is kind of like what I was trying to tell you is the things I've been learning. Just trying to keep that real separate. You know, that way the whites in the light source look a lot stronger, a lot better. So just trying to really, really rinse out. And you can see I'm keeping one dark rinse cup and one light rinse cup. It'll probably get dirty here real soon, but as of right now, I'm still trying to keep a light rinse cup. So my dark colors don't go into it. So I'm using a little bit of burnt sienna, a little bit of red, and a little bit of tangerine, tangelo color into the skin. It must have not been right, so I'm going to mix a little bit of that ochre to it. As you can see, my ink's drying up a little bit. I really hate that, but unfortunately, where I live, it's a little bit dry and warm, and that's what happens. So you can avoid that with putting water on top and just kind of doing that stuff. So I'm just laying out that color. It's a real warm pinkish color, real warm into the cheekbone. It's actually reflective light bouncing off of that drapery and onto the cheek, onto the bottom right there. So I'm just trying to keep it looking the same without looking white. You really want to pay attention to value. I always talk about that stuff, you know, dark to light. I thought it'd be cool to do some blue outlining on the cheek. You know, like I said, I've been doing the filigree and the scrolling or whatever, like overlapping. So I just went and I don't like to do overlapping with black on black. I usually do red or gray or blue or something like that to change it up a little bit. So this is what I was talking about. So I go ahead and do a black into those little areas that separates the cheekbone and the jawbone. Like if it was a skull, I do black in order to make it look different. So that way you do kind of see the skull and you kind of don't see the skull. And you can see that I'm filling it in right now and just trying to make it right. You know, I left that little, there's like this little ball coming off the filigree, so I left that little thing open so that way I could fill it in with a little blue later and just kind of make it look real cool. So I'm actually mixing that blue and that brown again to get that gray into that black. But yeah, just really trying to get that shape in there. See how it separates the jawbone to like the cheekbone, makes it a little bit different, but it's just makeup, you know. So right now I'm actually mixing to make that lighter and make that shadow area. I was mixing the exact same colors I was telling you, little tangelo, a little brown, and then I was probably hitting a little like flesh tone, like the ochre, or like a little bit of light of the flesh tones, little flesh tone, peachy flesh tone in there, a little bit of it, not too much. Just trying to make it that same value and that warmth that's in that picture. So yeah, that's exactly what I did right now. Is just put the blue in there. I used probably the little light blue that I had there and put it in the little filigree parts. And you know, you always want to make sure to put ointment on it. You know, it gets real painful for the client, especially working like this. You know, you're working kind of slowly up and you don't want it to dry out too much. So right here I'm using a little bit of like plum and red on the top lip, just because the light's hitting it less, and on the bottom of the very bottom of the lip it's a little bit more in shadow. But making sure to use that red, make sure it's warm. On the side of the face, I'm using that red, keeping that warm, kind of the glow to the face. The body's warm, you know, it's like 98.6 degrees, so you want to make sure you show the glow from the body and the warmth. So I'm going ahead and just knocking those reds into the lip. I'm using a little bit of like plum and red, and then actually right there as it comes out of shadow and gets into light, I put on the very bottom underneath the lip, if you look right in between the lip and the chin, I put like a tangelo color, so that way, because the light's hitting it, you know, and it almost has this glowing warmth when I was looking at the picture. So I almost enhance it just because I like the way it looks, you know, and just make it look a little bit brighter, you know. So yeah, we're just going ahead and I'm going ahead and doing some of the flesh tone reflecting onto the white drapery. I mean, it light's hitting the face and then bouncing off and hitting the drapery, you know. So it's actually coming through the other side too. So you really want to show that. It'll make it look a little bit more realistic, a little bit more believable. Right there, I'm probably using a little bit more greens as it comes out, just getting away. Starting to use some purples and stuff. And these are all colors I'm going to use throughout the face too. I mean, I use all these colors throughout the whole thing to make it look believable, like it's in its setting. You know, I'm really trying not to put too many colors out and make it look like real crazy and trip it out, because it just won't be believable. But it's fun, you know, it's a tattoo. You got to have fun and just, you know, not be too stressed on all this stuff. But right here, I'm just mixing up and just trying to do some purples and whites and mixing all that stuff together and just kind of using some flesh tones in there and just having fun. You know what I mean? Just having fun and mixing colors, trying to do what I see, but also try not to be perfect, almost just painting, you know, just having fun with it, just going fast. You know, making decisions as fast as you can and just looking at the color and trying to get as close as you can. But really, value is important, you know, because I could probably use any color in that spot, and as long as the value is right, you know, it's going to work. You know, you really got to pay attention to the value. You know, if you don't understand value, what it is you're black to white, you know, and you know, you got to make sure that, you know, you can have a red and you can have a green, and they can be the exact same value when you turn it black and white. That's why I say, you know, if you ever take my seminar or anything like that, you know, I always take my tattoos and go into Photoshop and show you that I'll turn it black and white and show you that they hold up just the same in black and white as they do in color, to show you that I'm really thinking about value first and foremost before I'm thinking about color theory or anything like that. So you really want to pay attention to that stuff. Right here, he's bleeding a little bit more just because I'm hitting that shin and I'm trying to get that color packed and, you know, really trying to get in there. You got to be really careful, real gentle with that shin, you know, easy to chew it up, easy to overwork it. So I'm really trying to clean my machine out. You know, I've been going probably on this tattoo easily now 2.5 hours, maybe even 3. You know, my machine's starting to get dirty. I make sure to put a little green soap, or if you're using dial, a little bit of dial soap into those rinse cups. Make sure you're cleaning your machines out. You know what I mean? It'll help clean out your machines a lot easier, a lot better. I know people that stick alcohol in their rinse cups just so it breaks down that ink inside the tubes, because you know how it is, man. Them tubes get dirty inside from tattooing all day. It dries up just like on the outside of the ink caps, and it'll really change the way your machines are running. So just make sure to keep those clean. Right now I'm using a lot of browns on the outside, just trying to block in, you know, my stencil is warm, like I said. I'm just trying to block in those shapes on the outside of the drapery. To me, the outside of the drapery isn't as important as inside the face and the makeup and stuff, so I'm really just trying to get that down, you know. So I am trying to get that bottom of that chin in there, just there's a little reflective lighting, and just trying to get that pink. Guess I'm rinsing that pink out. That was doing the lips. Guess it wasn't right. So now I'm just trying to clean that water out. Yeah, you can see my little watercolor looking dental bib from like throwing the ink down from my rinse cups. So yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and do that pink again. To make this pink right here, I'm actually using yellow ochre and red. It makes it really bright, really warm, really rich. I really like it. And I'm actually going into white from there and making it a little bit more lighter in value. But if you use little yellow ochre or even yellow with red, I know it makes orange, but if you do it right, it'll make a really, really bright, like rich pinkish red sometimes if you stick a little bit of white in there. So yeah, just really drawing it in there and drawing the shape of the nose, making sure I'm paying attention to the shape of the nose, because it's very easy to mess the nose up when you do these black noses like this. You need to really make sure you pay attention to your highlights. The reflective lighting underneath the nose is important to get in there. The way the light source is coming over, as you can tell, I put the warmth underneath the nose to really keep it like there's a warm shadow underneath the nose, like it's in light. Really paying attention to them highlights, man, because you get rid of those highlights on them noses like that, and that tattoo is going to look so off. It's going to look really bad. So you got to pay attention. You can see how I'm paying attention to the shape. It may not be perfectly her nose, but I mean, this is just a Day of the Dead portrait. It's not meant to be completely 100% perfect. It's more just meant to have the feeling of those faces and the makeup, and just really paying attention to the value and shape of the nose is more important than losing it and just not making it look right and overthinking it. Just make smart decisions, So I'm going to go ahead and do the pink in the cheeks. The cheeks got a little bit more pink to them, a little more blood flow to them. So as it comes out of shadow, I'm mixing a little bit more red into my browns and really trying to make it believable, like it's starting to curve into light. So just hitting that. It's a little bit of tangerine, really making that come out. I've really been liking the tangerine. I've been messing with colors a lot and just kind of changing it, but I'm using dark red here to outline these. I guess what these would be, like the little flowers. These are flowers around the eyes. Usually they put flowers into the sockets of the skulls, so that's what these represent. And just I don't know if everyone knows what Dia de los Muertos is. It's a holiday in Mexico, and it's just celebrated in remembrance of the dead. So that way, when when people have this stuff, it has to do with a Mexican holiday, and it's got a little bit of culture to it. So I think it's really cool. I really enjoy doing them, being Mexican myself, and my dad being from Mexico, and it's just really cool to be tattooing stuff like this on people, even if they don't know what it has to do with or anything like that. I think it's cool to drop a little bit of my culture on the world and have them enjoy the look of it. I think it's cool, and thank you for all those people that have let me do them. And I honestly, people always ask me all the time, are you tired of doing them? I'm doing so many of them. I think a lot of people do get tired of doing them, but really, I really don't. I enjoy it. I think they're really cool. I'm always looking for new pictures of women and taking new pictures just to get a new face to work off of and draw different makeup. I usually draw the makeup on the fly there. One of the artists that has really inspired me for this stuff is Sylvia G. I had seen a lot of stuff like this for a long time, and I liked doing them, but man, when I seen her stuff, it was refined to the point where I was really inspired and started doing them, and had a chance to tattoo a few of her art pieces. And then from there, I just I enjoy doing my own now. I just enjoy not even looking at her stuff as far as before I draw it, and just kind of making it up and making it my own, and choosing the colors on my own, and just really going with it. So I thank her for the inspiration, but now I'm really enjoying just taking my own take on it. And that it has to do with my culture. It really excites me to do them on people, so I just think they're very pretty. I actually want one on myself. So yeah, you can see here the stencil's starting to wipe away, but you know what? Now I use it as a guideline. I'll put out the stencil I made if I end up losing the shape of the piece, because the guideline really is just the filigree on the face now. Now I can use that as I don't know if you ever took art classes or anything, and they make you draw in squares, and you copy, this picture off of the 1-inch squares and blow it up. And that's kind of how I use the filigree and the makeup. I kind of use it as a guideline, and I kind of eyeball it and make sure it's in the right spot. So if you end up losing your stencil and you end up stressing out, just go ahead and put your stencil out, or put the picture you actually drew out, and you can just look at it from there and use the guidelines from there, and it really helps. It really makes it a lot easier because there's not much to fill in there. It's very simple and very just there. So like I said, just be confident with your decisions. So we're probably easily, in this tattoo, I'm thinking I'm 4.5 hours and 4 hours in, a very slow tattoo. Just trying to build up them shadows. I'm using a lot of brown, I'm using some greens in there, some reds, and some purples, trying to just get them shadows like it's believable, like it's out of the light. I'm not really mixing any white into my shadows, not trying to make them too light. As it comes in, right there was really, really hot spot there, so I added that little tangerine in there. Just trying to clean everything off. So yeah, just trying to make sure them shapes. Look at how I'm doing these sockets, okay? So the light comes down while the brow is there, underneath the eyebrow, that goes out of light because the light's not hitting it. As it comes back into light, it's on top of the eyelid. Okay, the bottom eyelid is not as much in light. So you really want to pay attention to that. Even if you go a little bit more crazy and just make it darker and lighter, it's going to look right. But I see a lot of people don't mess with the value. If it's going to help you, you know, the reference you're using, make it black and white so you can see what it's doing. Maybe darken it up and make it black and white so that way you can see how dark the socket should be, you know. It's really going to help you to do that. But I would definitely think about the way the light's hitting it and what's underneath and what's on top. So that way you know the bottom lid is underneath, not as much light hitting it. The top lid's on top, so there's more light hitting it. You know, just pay attention to that. So when you go to darken up, of course, the bottom lid's going to be darker, top lid's going to be lighter. You know, things you want to think about. So I'm going ahead and do this blue here. You know, I like to fill these parts in blue and make them right. So I'm just filling it all in. I'm just trying to get it all there and using a little bit of value in those little circles and just trying to make it look cool. You know, so right now I'm just kind of using that indigo blue, and I think that's from Eternal, and I mean Intense, I'm sorry, not Eternal. Intense, it's an indigo blue. I think that's actually a Mike DeMasi color too that he had been using. But I'm also mixing that into my brown and that medium blue color from Fusion. So just making that cool little gray in there. Right now I'm just blocking it all in, just trying to get in there. You can see my stencil starting to wipe away. Tattoo's taking a long time, but it's coming together, you know? It's coming together, and I'm pretty happy with the results right now, you know? My brother is in a little bit of pain, and I'm feeling a little bad for him, you know? Long tattoos hurt, you know? On the legs are sensitive, you know? But he knew what he signed up for. I guess we all know what we sign up for, right? When we're getting tattooed. It's not fun. But we go through it because you end up with a beautiful piece you enjoy, and it's cool, you know? So I'm thankful for everybody that gets tattooed by me and that can sit, you know? It's rewarding, very rewarding the same day to be able to finish a piece like this. So yeah, just using a little bit of brown here, a little purple, you know? I'm like wiping him away. I'm sure it looks a little painful right now. I'm sure he's hurting. So yeah, just using brown and purples in the hair right there, trying to get those dark shadow parts up. Mixing a little bit of light brown in there, a little bit of them flesh tones in there to get them light colors. I'm really trying not to put any colors out that I don't need, you know. You see me drop some stuff on there right now with a paper towel. Actually, that's Bactine. I use a lot of Bactine on my clients that I work on for a long time. It's really good. It's an antiseptic and anesthetic, so it helps out with numbing it, helps out with cleaning it, you know. So it's good stuff, you know. I try not to use it too much, but sometimes I'll use a whole bottle on a client if they need it, you know. I really don't mind. It's a $5 bottle, and if it makes my clients a little bit more comfortable, hey, it's worth it, you know. I'm all about making my clients happy and comfortable. So right now I'm mixing a lot of weird greens. She had a little bit of blonde in her hair. I'm mixing some of that like olive I put out, and I'm mixing a little bit of that yellow ochre into it, a little bit of orange into that. You know, try to get that hair color. I'm leaving, you know, the values, all the light values, anything like basically like a 3 and up, I haven't put in. So all my light values aren't completely in. I'm just kind of, you know, wiping away and just trying not to make it dirty, because if I go and do some light values, I could drop some black in there and it's just going to be dirty. It's going to darken it. So okay, so right here I'm actually mixing like a light flesh tone with some purple maybe and some blue, real light. It's actually, I think what I'm using is that dirty white that I've been mixing that brown and blue into the whole time, and just using that straight. The back is I'm just blocking it in, you know, just trying to get that shape there. I'm not trying to be perfect, just trying to get that shape there. You know, just really paying attention to the value. Right here I'm using that olive, man. That olive's awesome. A little bit of olive, a little bit of red in there. Just trying to mix it. Very little red, but little olive, little red. Just using that 17 mag bug pin, and just really trying to get that in there. His skin was pretty much pissed off at me at this point, you know, just really trying to just block it in. He's in a little bit of pain, just trying not to kill him. So just trying to make it look good. I really wasn't sure what I was doing, man. I just kind of blocked in those green shapes and just kind of went with it. A lot of times I just go with the feeling, you know. I don't really overthink things, you know. I think to overthink things hinders you, you know. You kind of just don't let things happen. Sometimes I let go and just follow whatever happens with what I'm looking at. I don't just go perfect. A little bit more Bactine, help them out. And honestly, like, this happened. Like, I knew I was going to do some kind of ray or some kind of something, but I really didn't know that I was going to come out with like this spike shape, you know. It just kind of formed that way, and I just kind of kept looking at it and looking back and seeing it, you know, and I just went with it, you know. I was like, wow, that looks cool, and I think that I like it. It wasn't planned out, you know, so just really trying to make it look cool. Yeah, and then I added this one, you know, and I really didn't enjoy that. It looks off. Like, if you look at it, it just doesn't go right. So I ended up covering a little bit, making it look like going distance a little bit more, a little further back, and just trying not to make it perfect. I wasn't too happy with that little area, but the rest of them I'm really happy with, and I'm sure down the line when I add more to the leg, I'll go into it more. But I didn't want the background to be too crazy. I wanted it to be real simple, almost like graphic. So yeah, so now I'm having fun, man. These are clean gloves, clean hands. I'm just putting out some colors. So I'm putting out some, I think, peachy flesh. I put out some, what was it, creamsicle or Georgia peachy flesh, and I don't know what the other one is. The other one's like a light flesh color from like Intense or something. So just mixing a little bit of red into that, mixing a little dark flesh from a Fusion in that. And now just trying to get that cheekbone in there, get it into light. Just really trying. I need it to be a little bit lighter, little Georgia peach, little peachy flesh. Mixing this color in there, getting this cool little flesh tone in there. Yeah, that's a cool color right there. I like that mixture. This is the fun part to me. Now I can do all the light side, everything in light. It makes it really fun to me. So yeah, I'm really just trying to clean that machine out. The machine's probably dropping out a little color. Usually what I don't do, which I should do, and you guys should think about, is the back of the tube has all kinds of ink in it, and when you get it wet, it makes it all dirty, so sometimes you get in there and it just starts getting dirty, you know. But yeah, man, this is the fun part. Now I'm just spraying the bottle, you know. I clean the bottle off and put it on top of the desk, since I know I'm going to use the whole bottle of Bactine and just going to toss it anyway, so I just put it on the thing there and just spray my brother down every once in a while so he can, you know, have a little bit of help. You know, he's going through a lot. So, yeah, just trying to get them shapes. Right here, I'm really paying attention. You know, the cheekbones always have this cross. If you look, you can see the cheekbone, and then you can see where the top of the teeth, like underneath the nose is. So I'm really trying to separate that. You can see how I'm, like, not going just straight across. There's actually, like, a cross there underneath the cheekbone. Or underneath, like, on the cheekbone, actually, where it's in light. You can see how it has, like, that little light source, that light part where it's a little darker, where the bone is, and where it comes back up over the teeth. So yeah, now I'm just going, this is my hand speed now, just so that way you see it. Like, you went the whole time already and just kind of seen it sped up. I just wanted to kind of show you hand speed at the very end and show you what it looks like. Really trying to make the right decisions here. Value is really important in this part. You know, I wanted him to show you real close when we were shooting this, you know, just kind of what's going on. You know, I'm not perfect. You know, my line work isn't the most perfect. I don't really think that technically, like, I'm like the best tattooer or anything like that. It's just you know, it's more just drawing for me and stuff like that. I'm trying to do clean lines, things like that. But for these pieces, I'm really just trying to make it the best I can for what I see. Yeah. So right now I'm just using like peachy flesh from Eternal. That's a great color. It's one of my favorite colors right now for these color portraits, and I use it all the time. Actually, this looks like Georgia peach, you know, and there's a little bit of brown and red there, so I'm just kind of going, and I'm just showing you like my hand motion. You know, this is pretty much the whole tattoo is about this speed in reality. Now you can see why it takes me so long. You know, I always lay the lines down first, you know, and then I just go right over them, you know. I just really try to pay attention, maybe try not to overwork it, you know. Usually these heal up great, you know. I've done a bunch of them, and I really haven't seen one heal up really bad. I mean, knock on wood, that they keep healing up great, you know. But yeah, you can see even the color goes into those lines a little bit. It doesn't even matter. It knocks it back a little bit. I kind of enjoy that stuff. I like stuff that happens like that, little accidents, you know. It doesn't really matter to me. It doesn't need to be 100% perfect. It's a tattoo, and if I need to touch it up, I will, you know. But as far as for the first pass and stuff, this is kind of the way I gotta lay it out, unless I was just gonna outline the whole thing and then go into it again in a second pass and color it. But either way, I'd have to go over the lines. You know, I could do the line work at the end, do the whole portrait, but it really wouldn't work the same. I'd rather do it this way with the line work and kind of go over it. That way it does lighten up in value in certain spots and darken up, stays dark where it needs to stay dark. So yeah, you can kind of see me just building it up here, and I'm going into like that peachy flesh into a little bit of white and just really paying attention to my movement, you know. Yeah, I'm using that FK iron, and this machine's really pushing that ink, man. It's really pushing that tube and needle. It's running great. I was really happy with the way that machine ran that day, and you know, I think I'm running it off an Icon power supply. The Icon power supply is one of my favorite. But when I travel, I use a small little Pulse power supply. It's really small. It runs great, runs my rotary. That's all I really care, is because I use rotaries with traditional machines all the time. I actually learned about rotaries from using Numas, as you know, if you watched my older DVD or whatever. I use Numas with it, and it was good, you know. But I just wanted to show you guys, you know, what I usually use is coils and you know, some rotaries. That's usually what I use every day, and I love them, man. I love my coils and I love my rotaries a lot, and Numas are awesome too. But this is usually what I stick with right here, is, you know, my coils. Also, I'm going to be doing another DVD, and it's going to be part of this. So it's going to be a black and white Dia de los Muertos DVD. So you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about with value and just paying attention, and be a little bit more simple. Probably something very similar, probably the same, like similar face, similar shape, similar drawing. That way you can kind of, you know, see them together, kind of. They're going to go together. But now I'm just trying to get all into the light side, just really paying attention to them shapes. You know what's funny is, like, a lot of times you look at the picture and you can barely see the value change. Man, those are my favorite parts, the very, very minor subtleties of the light source, because light's very hard to get right. Sometimes you could just make something look very flat by just putting one light color through the whole thing. I like the little bit of difference with the values. You know, I like a little bit of change. And you can see kind of how I put on this this Bactine. Like I said, that Bactine bottle will be thrown away. I won't use it again. You know, you want to make sure you're very clean, paying attention, you know, that you're not going to hurt anyone or hurt yourself or, you know, anything like that. I mean, you're dealing with blood and you're dealing with a lot of things like that. You want to think about cleanliness and really paying attention, taking care of your clients. And also what's real important is taking care of yourself. You know, you don't want to harm yourself and take it back home to your family or anything like that. So it's really important. We are dealing with blood, and, you know, you really gotta respect that. So now I'm just going to use a little bit of tangerine just to put in around the makeup, you know, around these eyes. You know, I'm using an 8-round right here. I'm using that shag-built rotary. It's an awesome rotary. Runs really slow, has a good punch to it. It's really strong. It's a strong machine. If you turn it up, that thing is going to pound that stuff in there. But I tend to run it really low, really soft, just enough so I can move real slow and just slowly build this stuff. And I mean, you can see, look, it's going right in there, man. This thing is awesome. This is a really super loose 8-round. I can use a loose 8-round. I can use a loose 5-round, loose 7-round, a loose 9-round. Any of those would work for this. But I'm using a loose 8, and I tend to use those a lot. So I enjoy the rotaries. They're a little light. That's why I like using the meters. I use a Pulse with a meter. I use an Icon with a meter. So that way I know how fast they're running. It tells me how much volts are going to them. You know, I usually run this shag-built rotary probably around 6, maybe, honestly, anywhere between like 5 and 8, depending on how fast. But right now I'm probably using about 6.5, you know, something like that, 7. Not too hard, but making sure it's a consistent movement, making sure that it's not going in too deep, really paying attention, you know, to how it is and how it looks, you know. So yeah, I'm just going through it and trying to make it look solid, and I'm actually in those little areas that I'm leaving open because I'm not trying to make these completely solid. I'm going to do a little bit of white or flesh tone highlights. I've been doing that with my the makeup that I've been doing on these girls, and it's been fun, you know, just trying to make it look embedded in the skin, you know. I think it's cool. But these 8 rounds and 5 rounds are standard taper number 12 needles, or long taper number 12 needles. I really don't pay attention to it too much. Actually, what I've been messing with a lot lately is number 4 bug pins. I mean, not number 4, 00 bug pins, but 4 round needles, and they've been working really well. This is one thing you really want to pay attention to right here. I'm using this 8 round, and I'm knocking in the shadow area in the eyes. You know, people tend to make the eyes white in the eyes. Eyes aren't white. You know what I mean? The whites of the eyes around are not white. They have shadows on them. They are light, yes, but you do want to knock in them shadows. If you make them solid white, man, that thing is going to look like a zombie. It's not going to look right. So you really want to pay attention to those shadows and really kind of put them in there, you know, and make them look right. So right now I'm just putting a little bit of Bactine on there, trying to help them out. And it also helps me clean it up. Put a little green soap on my towel, paper towel, and put a little bit of Bactine on there, and then clean it off, you know. So that way, you know, it kind of helps them out and doesn't give them a bunch of pain. So getting very close now. You know, I did all the light side of flesh tones. I need to still stick whites in there in the face. I'm actually making it move a little bit, and I'm probably going to start knocking in lights and doing the eyes, you know, trying to get the eyes in there and really making them look the way they need to. So yeah, so you can see here I'm just packing in that white, man, just trying to get that white. Maybe I'll probably boost the contrast in the background later, but you know, for right now I'm just going to do it the way it is and let it heal and then go back through it later. But I was looking at the rays and they just looked unfinished to me, so I actually grabbed some yellow ochre, some yellow that I had there, and kind of brightened it and faded it off into the skin. I actually like a little bit more of a glow that I have. So this is kind of how I put some Bactine. I actually put a paper towel over there, make sure it's on there, make sure it's real. It usually helps them a lot. So I went through the eyes. I put a little bit of green in the eyes, detailed them up a little bit. You can see me just kind of going through there. Now I'm darkening it and just trying to make the eyelids look more realistic, look more right. I'm adding a little bit of eyelashes to them. Really paying attention not to go into the white. You know, making sure my needles hung out a little bit further. I added these little dots in there. It looked unfinished. I didn't like the way the spider web looked, so I just added that because I wasn't too happy with the way it just finished. So that's kind of things I say, like you just kind of go on the fly and just kind of make it up and change things, you know. That's the fun part about this. I'm doing the portrait, but I'm also have creative freedom with it and get to have fun. But now I'm putting the light values into the nose, light values into the eyes. I'm putting them flesh tones into the forehead. Really just trying to make it look right. I'm just like tightening it up, doing the detail I need to do, you know, to really make it look finished and make it look right. Remember, the most important things are value, drawing, you know. Color is the last thing you want to think about. But it is good to try color once you do learn value and really try to pay attention to, you know, using different colors. So right here I'm using a little bit of white, and I left little gaps, so I'm kind of just making it look like it's carved into the skin. You know? So now I'm just trying to keep my white clean. You know what I mean? I'm really rinsing my machine out, really rinsing my tube out, really cleaning that thing off to make sure my whites are clean. So now I'm just going in there, knocking in them highlights into the lips. These are the most important ones. You know, if you're going to stick highlights anywhere, you know, you want to put them in the lips and eyes and nose. I mean, that's what I do. You know, I think it's the most important parts. I tend to go a little crazy with white on these pieces because even though the whole face is solid and everything's going to tone down. It may look a little bit more crazy when I'm finished, but when it heals, it just has a slight little looking like it's carved into the skin. So I try not to overdo it, but sometimes, you know, overdoing of white is very easy to do, and, you know, unfortunately we all do it. But right here I'm just putting a little bit of white into the upper lip and just trying to make it look good and nice. And then I put that little white highlight, maybe it's even a little gray, kind of dotted up and just kind of faded off into the skin. I like the way that looks. And there's also a little bit of white here. You can see, like, sometimes decisions aren't the best. I put too much white right there, and you'll see me later go back into it because I wasn't quite happy with that, and it needed a little bit more of a transition, so I'll take my mag and just kind of clean it up because it just was too much for right there. So this kind of stuff, I left those little gaps because I want these to stand out a lot, and I just like for it to look carved into the skin, so like it's a part of her, not just makeup. So yeah, just putting these white highlights, making sure I'm paying attention, being very careful. I mean, this 5 rounds is very powerful in this rotary, you know. But, you know, I'm really enjoying this rotary, you know. I mean, I jump around a lot with machines, you know, but I do it for the reason because it teaches me so much. Sometimes, man, you got to try everything. You got to try things. Unfortunately, sometimes it's permanent, but like, you know, if you're a good artist or a good tattooer, you'll be able to really make better decisions. And you know if something's chewing something up, or you know if it's overworking, or you know if it's too much, so you can stop using it. You know, those are the things we have to judge ourselves. But I mean, if I don't like something, I won't use it anymore. I won't ever use it. But if it's something I enjoy and makes me excited to tattoo, it's like a new toy, you know. I think it's one of those things that keep me excited on tattooing, keeps me excited on learning. And, you know, I love new toys. I mean, it's my job, my hobby, and my love at the same time. So I really enjoy getting new things for it, trying new inks, trying new machines, new power supplies, everything, you know, just everything, trying new techniques, painting and trying new techniques with this. So really search outside of the box and really try to make yourself, you know, learn. And you can see here, you know, I love tattooing. I just really do. And I love art. So hopefully you guys feel the same, and you try to do your best. But yeah, this rotary is awesome. I'm really enjoying using it, and I switch all the time, man. Sometimes I'll use just all coils, sometimes I'll use all rotaries, sometimes I'll use all swash strides. You know, just really, like, it's just how I feel that day, you know. I mean, I love jumping back and forth. I want to have an educated opinion on all these things, you know. Even Numas, you know, I'll use those once in a while and just kind of see, you know, and they feel great, man. Like, you know, like when you jump from one machine to the other, sometimes you just feel great, you know. It just feels so good to, like, get out of that box for a little while and try something different and new. So yeah, I'm just kind of adding little white highlights, really paying attention to where they're at, trying not to add too many, trying to make these eyes look glossy, have a little bit of emotion, you know. Trying not to overdo it, overwork it, you know. Just taking my time, making my decisions, making sure I'm happy with the decisions I made, you know, because these are forever. You know, this is a little yellow highlight right there in the eye, a little one right there in the eye. Really paying attention to it, you know. So hopefully you guys are enjoying this DVD, and hopefully you guys learn a lot. You know, so right now I'm getting that little bit of the yellow. You can see I put way more colors out now. So yeah, you know, under the eyelid I always leave like this little gap. And at the very end I usually do it too. I usually do it before I do the white. I don't know why I waited, but you know, this time I guess I waited, and it's fine as long as I don't wipe it into the white. But I put it right underneath that eyeball and above the eye, like, lid, just to show that little gap of skin. You know, because if there was makeup, there'd be that dark line underneath the eyelid, and there'd be like that pinkish fleshy color that would always be wet and that would never, you know, have makeup on it. So you really want to show that there's like that real living human being under there, you know, because this girl didn't have makeup on. You know, you have to make the makeup on, make it up. So you have to really think about those things. You have to think more in depth, like, what would this really be like, or what would it look like if she was wearing this, you know. So using a little bit more yellow, and just kind of adding those little highlights into the eyes, making them a little bit more believable, a little bit more cool, and, you know, just giving that emotion, that feeling, you know. That's the most important part of this piece of the eyes, you know. People just recognize and familiarize with that because that's what they look at all day. They look at people's eyes all day long. So yeah, just adding, you know, I like to do a lot of dots. You know, I do a lot of dots. Now I'm going underneath the eyelid because the way that the skin rolls and rolls around that eyeball. So, you know, how it looks. So I'm just kind of adding little white highlights around there. Real quick, you know, nothing real opaque, just enough. And now I'm using probably like a white, maybe a little flesh tone mixed in there. It's not something so crazy. But I like doing this stuff. I just try to be real gentle with it. Nothing real crazy. Just kind of packing in there real fast and getting out. Trying not to go over my line so that way I don't dig a ditch. It's just trying to make it real tight to it, real crisp. You know, I usually don't do this with a lot of my pieces. A lot of times I use a lot of soft edges, like you do in the like I did in the drapery. As you can see, I use a lot of soft edges in the drapery to kind of knock that back, knock it out of focus. And then, you know, everything else is tight. All the makeup's tight. The face is tight. You know, it really makes you look at her face. Nothing's really taking anything away from the face, you know, trying to make those decisions. So this is the final wipe down. and this is the tattoo. It took about 8.5 hours. Thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. Hopefully you learned something new. You know, hopefully it gave you a different perspective on this, and have a good night. Thank you. I just finished the Dia de los Muertos tattoo. It was about 8.5 hour tattoo. It went really well. The skin was real good. The colors went really well. The only thing that I covered that I think had a problem with more was the 5 round. It seemed like it was wanting to cut, so I had to really be careful with like laying the lines in there and not going too slow. So I had to actually mess with that a little bit and kind of make it work with it. Overall, the tattoo was fun. There was a lot of creativity in it because having to deal with the shape and value of the socket's nose to make them dark is one of the hardest things. But once you know and you kind of have an idea, then it helps you out. It went really well. Hopefully when you do it, you don't have a problem with the 5 round. But hopefully you learn something off of this information that I've given you on this DVD. I pretty much covered everything I do. Make sure that if you are going to attempt something like this, you draw it first and make sure you can draw it first because it is permanent on people's bodies, and you don't want to make a permanent mistake. You know, everyone makes mistakes, but the least amount of them that you can make, the better you are. Make sure to keep an eye out for more DVDs coming from Black Anchor Collective and more DVDs from friends of mine that are going to be involved with helping people learn and education in tattooing. These tattoo DVDs are not meant for the beginner. These are meant for professionals that have been tattooing. So there is no setup and there is no teaching of how to tattoo. What there is teaching is just technique, and if you are a professional, you will understand these things I'm talking about. I'd like to say thank you to everyone that's helped me learn along the way. There's so many names that I could mention, but as far as, you know, the people out there, you know who you are, that have helped me learn tremendously. People I've worked with, people that I've had the chance to meet, people I've really looked up to. I've told you who you are. Thank you very much again. Got love for all you guys. Thank you for watching. This is Nikko Hurtado at Black Anchor Collective. Good night.